Hello, 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 everyone. Today we have Zoheb Malik joining us all the way from Canada, Ontario. I'm super excited for this one because we will be learning about front end development, software engineering, and then how AI is helping front end development. And then we'll also talk about Zoeb's story and how he got interested in AI and what advice would he give to all the people who are joining AI. So first of all, thanks a lot for joining, Zoeb. Appreciate you doing this on a short notice.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for reaching out for the opportunity to be on this call, this podcast. Looking forward to discussing all things relating to AI and further talking about myself and my story.
Awesome. Well, let's start with your introduction, if you don't mind giving audience your background. What have you done, and where actually you are originally from, and to the point you are at right now.
Yeah, of course. So, my name is Zoheb Malik. I was born in the UK in a small town named Doncaster. It's recognized as a city now recently, but I had quite the normal childhood. Ethnically, I'm from Pakistan. My parents were born and raised there. My mother was back and forth from the UK. My education was quite normal, my upbringing, and ultimately the way I got into this field was my interests by going on the commuter, which my parents had bought when I was around
Well,
maybe.
do you remember that first computer?
I do. I don't exactly remember the make or anything like that, but I just remember it being one of those old school white ones where you would have to manually press a button and turn it on with the CD drive and everything. It was advanced for the time, but yeah, I was absolutely encapsulated by it. And
What
as I
was what was that one thing or two thing that was attractive to you about them?
Just the ability of being able to sit at the comfort of my own home and being able to browse and access information online. The entire concept was quite intriguing. And then the main thing that intrigued me was being able to connect with others. They can be anywhere in the world, and I would be able to communicate with them, speak to them, play games with them, and that's ultimately where my interest began.
And so you spent your childhood in UK, right?
That's right. Yes.
Okay. And you did your schooling, high school, college over there too?
Yes. All my education was in the UK. I went to, as you guys call it, elementary and middle school and high school. We refer to it as primary school, secondary school, and then there's college, which is interchangeable with sixth form, which is what it's referred to, and then finally university. All my education prior to university was in Doncaster. And then I moved to a city named Manchester, where I studied in Manchester Metropolitan University for 4 years. And I did software engineering. Interest and my education was more so self-taught as opposed to in college or high school. And ultimately, I felt like this would probably be the best route for me to go to, because I did have an understanding at that time the way the world was shaping out to be from my perspective. I just knew that in terms of education, it probably is best as well for me to pursue this particular interest, because I know things will always become more like technologically advanced, and that's why I went that way.
Yeah, I know. I think that's very smart of you to think that way. I didn't even think when I was young to like, oh, software or technological savviness is so critical in nowadays, and it's gonna be in the
Yes.
future. But I guess whenever the sooner you realize, or whenever you realize, is the moment, right?
Definitely.
Uh, they say that there are two times which is best for investing. First is few years back when you actually thought about it, and now, right?
Exactly.
So I wanted to ask. You said something about that you self-taught yourself.
Mhm.
And how was it compared to what you studied in university about software engineering?
Yeah, that's a good question. I found that, especially when I eventually went into my previous job, that things that I had learned through being self-taught was more valuable than what I had learned in university, surprisingly. Maybe some people may agree, maybe some people would disagree, but for me, I had found that most of the knowledge that I already had from my personal interests and time that I would spend outside of education on coding, programming, experimenting, failing, because there's no way that you would succeed the first time. So I learned through a lot of trial and error.
It's a very interesting thing you brought up, and I currently I'm in US in Seattle. My undergraduate and childhood has been in India,
Yep.
and you are in UK. And I'm seeing a common trend between the education system anywhere you go, I guess, worldwide. It's not that practical and it's not that relatable. So
Yeah.
I have the same experience, or whatever I've learned in my degree or in the interest that I am pursuing is mostly because of my own trial and error or my own learning. And
Yes.
so I think we definitely need an upgrade in the education system.
Yeah.
Hopefully, AI can help. Who knows?
Yeah, definitely. I do wonder how the education field is now since the introduction of AI. I know I would have definitely benefited from it when I was in education. I'm sure a lot of graduates, I mean undergraduates, are relying on ChatGPT and other
Oh,
forms of AI
yeah.
to help them with their assignments and whatnot. But I wonder how education and universities and colleges and whatever else combats against
Yeah.
plagiarism, whatever else may come with AI.
Yeah, it's a good and bad, yin and yang, right? You'll have both. But what I am hearing, I was actually watching this video when I'm pretty sure you are aware of Peter Diamond's
Right.
uh, talk about, like, he's actually the host of Moonshots, and he had like a group of expert panels, and they were saying that like fastest in, I guess, industry will be the education industry, because of what you're talking about, the plagiarism, and like young students are already using ChatGPT and advanced like LLM models in the
Yep.
day to day, and they're, I guess, coming up with very creative ways to do assignments and exams and everything. So teachers and everybody is up on the edge, and they are trying to figure out how to best accompany or work with the AI.
Yeah.
But talking about, you said you did your undergrad, you got the software degree, engineering degree, and then did you do masters too?
No, I didn't do masters.
You were like, I think I'm done with the schooling. I didn't get anything valuable.
I didn't necessarily think that. I just felt like I could pursue a job or something in the field without particularly needing a master's. I know a lot of people would advise against that, and they would suggest doing a master's for a potential better job. I would strongly disagree. In fact, if you were to go in the field of software engineering, I think there isn't a need of going to university whatsoever. I
Wow.
know with the system, people say you need a degree, you need this qualification for you to get into this field, otherwise you won't get a job. And it's like you are instilled this from the very moment you are in education, whether that's in middle school, high school. That's all you are. I would even go as far as to use the word brainwashed, even from family members, not necessarily your peers and teachers. But I
Yeah.
think people can go a long way without having a university degree. Whilst education is important, I wouldn't recommend that people not be educated,
Yeah.
but people can educate themselves.
Yeah, I'm in complete alignment with you. Um, there are instances wherein, for example, like doctor degree is
Exactly.
something you have to get. You have to know the fundamentals, and you have to have that degree. That
Yes.
even that can have practical approach, which pretty much most of these schools have some sort of ways to like actually try out and be practical in terms of the education. But you're right. I think most of these, like for example, coding, even construction. I work in construction. I was talking to a superintendent, and he's the one who has more than 40 years of experience
You know.
in working in construction. And I asked him one thing, like, what advice would you give me or people who are just starting off in their career? And he said that you don't need any degree, you don't need anything else. You only need one thing, and that's common sense,
Yes.
which nobody can teach you. I guess you have to expose yourself to the environment you want to learn from, or just go out and network, or just learn from people.
Yes, exactly. I completely agree with you and the person that you spoke to. Definitely.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about, you did your undergrad, and then you said you started working in a job. Can you tell me about that opportunity?
Yeah, so not long after I finished education, I went into a front end job for a company named Virtue Motors. And they are basically one of the largest car sellers, resellers, um, motor company in the UK. And my main focus was making front-facing websites or further developing pre-existing websites and working in languages such as JavaScript frameworks, particularly Angular and React. Everything else was just the normal languages, HTML, CSS, and whatnot. But those were the main focuses in this role.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wanted to ask you why you chose front end development apart from every other field in software engineering.
Good question. So this was what I was most comfortable with. Although I had worked with backend in the past, even before education and before this job, just going back to my childhood and talking about that a little bit further, whilst I was interested in computing and going online when I was young, my ultimate interest began into specifically coding and developing things when I would play a particular game. And it was an online networking game named Habbo. And I'm not sure if you have heard
Mhm.
about it, but it was very popular post 2006, 2007, all the way up to maybe even 2018, 2019. Now it has died off quite a bit, but it was a pay to play type of game for extra amenities like VIP clothes, credits, furniture where you can build rooms. And I would play the game for free, and I would wonder, especially when I was that young, 12, 13, I don't necessarily want to pay for the game, but I like playing the game. So there must be a way to reverse engineer this or something. There must be something I can do. And I would research, I would see posts on Stack Overflow. I would learn that, yes, there are something that is known as retros of the game, which is basically reverse engineered platforms of the same game. And then I went on to building it myself. And that's how I got into coding and building a front-facing website before being able to load the game. And although I had worked in both, I found that I am particularly good at designing and building nice facing websites, different themes, different styles, knowing how to combine components efficiently, and making code neat and modular. So with that knowledge at that very young age, I took it upon myself to also make it the main focus in my career.
That's so interesting. Yeah, a couple of things, I really love you said is that you saw a problem that you were facing, like, well, you wanted to play, but you couldn't. And so you kind of thought of making your own, which it is interesting. It's almost like problem solving. But at the same time, you were at the age of 12 and 13, so you were very young. And yeah, that's awesome that, at that time also you had like this drive and passion towards solving the web development issues. And I really like what you said about, making the code neat, and then you talk about like the front end being very organized. And what I have learned from being around my friends who are like front end developers is that these people are very organized in
Yeah.
general in life too. Like, I don't want to say OCD, but more like they have very systematic approach of doing things, and that shows in their work. It's their website is very clean, and you can see the coloring shown perfectly, and everything is balanced. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would definitely agree. And I think it's a good thing to have. Some might say or view it as a problem, but I think maybe not particularly OCD, but just having that keen eye and that attention to detail is quite important, especially in a field like front end development.
So let's actually talk about we talked about the front end development, and we talked about your job in venture motors, which is it? You said
Virtual
venture motors.
motors, yeah.
So after that, what was the next adventure for you?
So actually, I worked with the Virtual Motors for over 2.5 years, close to 3 years. I started in February 2022, and I actually handed in my resignation 2 months ago, almost now. And the reason why I did is because I felt like I wanted to kind of test the waters a little bit, see what opportunities I can grab, get into, particularly mainly focused on artificial intelligence. Whilst I admit it's quite a courageous thing to do, or very risky, I feel like it definitely is the best move for me. So I'm still in that phase of discovering what the next best thing is for me. But I feel like I'll make good progress and have things to show for it, and be more in that field.
Yeah, that's truly courageous, actually, because a lot of time I have thought about risking just quitting my job and just pursuing my own passion, which I will eventually. But I'm always like at the edge of like, okay, well, do I really want to make a move? And kudos to you to make that jump and trying to figure out your next adventure. And also amazing that you are already starting to think ahead and in terms of like AI and the next adventure in AI. So you are definitely ahead of a lot of people, I should say. So you said last few months you have been kind of learning about AI and really honing in on what your next skill is. So let's actually jump into this right here. Is like what opportunity do you see? Because now you have been working in the computer field since very early age, and so what do you see in the AI that makes you excited about this field?
I see a lot of things that can benefit us in this field. And I have also spoken to peers in the past, especially when it made quite the boom post 2021, 2022. And conversations with colleagues would make me realize some people are either scared of AI, or they don't have as much faith and belief as I do of its capabilities. I really don't think there should be a fear of AI taking over um, our jobs, because that's been quite a topic of discussion in this field, right? I personally think we would never be able to allow AI to take over our jobs, because there just are some things that AI can't do. And if AI can do it, then we should adapt with AI. We should learn AI so that way we aren't made redundant. Because who else is going to program that AI and make it more advanced if it's not humans? I know now AI can make AI more advanced, but who would be making the initial AI, right? There
Yes,
will
totally.
always be that use case. There will always be that relevance of needing someone, a person, an actual human. But that's why I feel like not just me, but multiple people, even everyday people, should get accustomed to using AI in some form of way.
Yeah, that's so rightly said. And I totally agree with you. I mean, of course, we have a long time until AI will teach AI. And of course, there might be some traces in some fields that you'll find it, but there's going to be human in the loop
Yep.
for a few years.
Yeah.
And the sooner we adopt it, like you said, and educate ourselves in AI, at the same time make these systems better for humans, the better it is going to be for our future generations. And rather than fearing it, adaptability is the key. And that's what Charles Darwin used to say, right? Survival of the fittest. And I think that's one of these moments right here.
Definitely. Yes.
So let me talk to you about where do you see, because now you have done almost 3 years of front end development, and you have been building, apps and front end work for quite some time. Where do you see that field going with nowadays? You have the Replit app and any other like Cursor or just agentic workflows. They are taking over, but they are not quite there in terms of like having an human eye of, like you said, attention to detail, of being very organized and having a very systematic front end development. But where do you see this field going with the help of AI?
I do see it progressing significantly, because it's still relatively early days, right? If you go back to when the actual computer was made, there's been so many years since then for computers to become more advanced. An iPhone or a Samsung is a computer in itself. Who could have ever thought, especially back then, that you would have a device that's now this small that you can hold in your hand and it's extremely powerful? And there's been over 50 years since, even over 100 years since the first computer. So the same way of thinking should be seen with AI. It's still relatively extremely early, and although it may not think like humans yet, it's very close. I believe it's very close, particularly in the front end development field. I think it would be made a lot easier by AI to make things on the front end, and in some cases even back end.
So I want to hone in into what specifically do you think will see the most development in the front end? Is it going to be user experience mostly, or just the design portion?
I would say both. Design is more so objective, because everyone has their own eye for design. So whilst AI could create something, it may at a point become repetitive, or it may not meet to the needs of what the user of the AI is actually requiring from it. In terms of user experience and being able to follow a particular flow, I probably think that would be the main focus, the main area that would improve more than design. But I would still say they both will be improving.
And why do you say that? Why user experience will have more development in this regard?
Because as AI is being used, it is continuously learning. So the more it's used, the more data set it has, whether it's
Hmm.
used by Cursor or ChatGPT or Anthropic and its LLMs such as Claude and whatever else. It is taking the information and seeing what would ultimately be the best way to appease the user and what would be the utmost efficient and best user experience. Whereas something as design is more so a visual aspect. And although AI has visual capabilities now, I just think it's slightly behind things that you can prompt through text.
Yeah, that's a really nice way to put it. And now I'm understanding what you were trying to say earlier. And to your point, basically, what you're trying to say is that we have fed so much data into these large language models that now it is giving us much more personalized experiences. So for you, the experience is different than for me, and AI can do that much better than any other, I guess, humans can, because it's very cool, like tailored to your suggestions. And I
Mm-hmm.
guess that's whole the whole concept of TikTok is, right, algorithms.
Yeah.
So now it makes sense what you said about that. And I also agree with you on the user designs portion because it's visual. Of course, a lot of visual portion is still under development. And I think I'm forgetting his last name, but Andrew Young, I think.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, so he actually was talking about how the same thing, the visual AI models are lagging in terms of the text based models. And he seems to think that that's going to be the next wave in the year or two from now. So from there, the design can be augmented. uh, I do like that in both cases you still need human in the loop, right? Because you
Yeah.
ultimately need humans to be the decision factor. Otherwise you'll have the false positive. That's what they call it, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's actually talk about voice activated systems,
Mm-hmm.
because the reason why I'm bringing voice activated system is because you talked about the evolution of like computers, how computers have evolved. As in, we didn't talk about the evolution, but we talked about like hundreds years ago or till now, computer has seen so much, from giant system supercomputers to now we are have everything in our hand. And I seem to think that the next big thing in this era is more voice activated system, wherein you won't even be holding a phone in your hand. It's more of it is just talking to a device,
Mm-hmm.
which is going to be kind of helping the users, or not just users, but just like in general, people will be interacting more naturally without even holding something in hand or working on a laptop. What do you say about that?
Yeah, I think that is particularly good because ultimately the reality is that not everyone has the knowledge when it comes to computing and computers and software and being able to use software or even being able to use a phone. So when it comes to the word accessibility, that's where I think voice activated, voice controlled programs or devices really come into play. And ultimately, I feel like that would benefit a lot of people and that wouldn't limit it to people that are smart in the sense of knowing how to use a computer or a phone and how to open certain software and how to close certain software. Maybe you and I may find that extremely easy to do because we've grown up in that era. But for people that are a generation above us or that just don't have that access to that knowledge, or even those that are disabled to do something that we find so simple, voice activated devices, voice control devices, ultimately would increase the audience reach and for the good.
Cannot agree with you more. I mean, that's so rightly put. And I have actually seen people who are disabled who cannot see, for example, the vision impaired people are
Yeah.
using this activated system like OpenAI's ChatGPT's advanced voice model.
Yeah.
And it's helping them so much. And I cannot, I think we are day by day going into more LLM based operating systems, and I think people have already started working on it. I know that Anthropic is promoting that too. And so imagine that, like with voice activation, you can ask a computer and phone to do what you want. That's going to be so huge for people who are blind or people who, like you said, are disabled. And not just for them, for the people who are not that educated or literate in technology. I think this AI is actually bringing technology to the people who are not technologically savvy, and
Yes.
that's why the promise is so huge.
Yes, definitely. I completely agree with everything that you said there.
Talking about like AI and then the development, I wanted to ask you a few things that, or few apps or development, recent development that you are very excited about, last couple of weeks, and you're like, man, this is interesting and it's going to be huge, or it's going to benefit humans, or how you feel?
Well, yeah, the number one thing that I would put on my list, and although it's not been something that has been developed in the recent weeks, but it has almost weekly updates, is something called Olama. And this is an amazing tool which brings local LLM models right to your computer. So if your computer is able to run any specific LLM based on its memory, you can run it locally, offline, and programmatically code with it and develop whatever your mind can even imagine, whether that's something as simple as a PDF reviewer, summarizer, anything of the sort. And it even has vision capabilities locally with its Llama Vision model. So long as your device can run Olama, you can use it. So it's an extremely powerful tool. And the main selling point of Olama is that you can use it completely offline and it being private without you needing to worry about having your data sent anywhere and things like that.
Oh wow. I see a lot of enterprises using this, or can use this technology, because then they can install this locally in their device or in their server, and then from there they can manage so much of their data, which is pretty unstructured, and even build on top of that, and then actually create apps and create systems that will allow them to be productive in their work. It's interesting. I actually did learn or did know about Olama, but I didn't know that this was the use case. That's thanks a lot for sharing that. Apart from Olama, what is catching your eye?
Um, Particularly something that's in current development and constant development is something called LinguFlex by Kolja, who also refers to himself as long lingering, if I have that correct. And he has developed this tool with the help of other contributors that you can open up on, I believe right now, Windows devices. Is currently trying to make it work on Linux and Mac as well. It goes into what you had talked about earlier about voice recognition and being able to talk to a device, a computer that can open up a calculator, for example, or the notepad, and it being able to detect your voice and speak back to you, not only just do what you're asking it to do, but giving your normal computer, your average computer, the ability to be intelligent in a sense and making it smart with that AI.
Oh, so is it like basically like voice activated system? You can just speak to it and then it's gonna intelligently produce output based off of what you're asking?
Yes, it's a bit more advanced than that. So it's all built in a CLI. You can install it onto your Windows computer. I think is the initial place that it was developed on Windows, and it will pop up, and it's written in Python. You can install it and then activate it and be able to speak to it and say things like, please open up the calculator, and it would repeat back saying, the calculator has successfully been open, and then things like that, which makes any computer in the world, wherever the use case is, more accessible to those that may not be able to find where the calculator is or are visually impaired and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah. There's so many use cases, and this is just a start. I mean, imagine like few years later, this will be much more advanced than we can even imagine right now.
Yes.
And I think this is where people are making bet on the agentic workflow, right? The agents that can perform tasks which are powered by LLM. In that realm, do you see any like AI agents which has a strong potential that you can think of?
Yes, I guess it depends on the use case. Specifically talking about building websites or building infrastructure and systems that anyone could use, whether you are knowledgeable in coding or not, would be a tool that you mentioned earlier, being named Cursor. And Cursor has now a very good agent in a sense, but they refer to it as a composer. And it has the ability to take over your computer in a sense and specifically aid you in your workflow. You can simply think of an idea, ask it to build that thing, and it would build it for you, so long as your prompt is good. And I really feel like nowadays it's not the case of having ideas of how to build something yourself, but having the idea of how to prompt a tool to build it for you.
Yeah, I love what you said about it's not about how you can do something, it's about learning how to prompt. So can you elaborate on more about this? Because a lot of people I talk to fear that they cannot get into the AI industry because they don't know how to code, or they are not software engineers, or don't know anything about machine learning and computer vision. And so uh, things are very streamlined in a way that you just need to know a particular language, like for example English. So I guess English has become more like a coding language now, because all you need is just prompting. So how can people get out of this fear of not working in this space and just learning prompt engineering?
Yeah, of course. I would, in fact, use ChatGPT as an example for that, because although it initially started out as an AI tool, not so much now, but in the past, surprised me that people, even outside of the coding world, got to know of ChatGPT and use it for their use case, whether that's writing an email for themselves, or writing a letter, or summarizing a piece of text, or finding out information about something relating to something, anything random. And I would say a lot of people, perhaps even outside of coding, would prompt or say something to ChatGPT in a particular way, maybe once or twice, and it wouldn't give an answer back, or the answer they were expecting back to them, and they would lose all faith in AI. They would say, this tool is not good, it's rubbish, it shouldn't be used. Where I would argue against them and say, what if the way you asked was the wrong way, right? And I don't think there should be a fear in getting involved in such a field, especially when it's so easy for people to be involved in with AI now, because all you need to do is speak in your own language. It doesn't even need to be in English. You can say things in a particular way for it to give the answer you want. So ultimately, I think it's very easy for people to get involved in the space. And because it's so easy now, I think they should fixate on the easiness if they do feel some form of fear. Because ultimately it would benefit them. It would benefit them with the knowledge and being able to use AI, as opposed to not using it in day-to-day use cases. And it would just only make their lives easier.
Yeah, I, you know, I think the real question then they should be asking is not that they cannot go into the space for being afraid of, rather learn prompt engineering. Basically, that's all it comes down to, is just know how to use prompts, and you'll get pretty close to your desired output, if not the desired output. I have two more questions for you, and then the second last one is pretty interesting because I've been following all your, messages about how you post about all the advancements that are happening in the AI, and you're pretty active. Number one, how do you keep up with so much development that's happening in AI? What's your resources that you go to? And then also, if you can talk about this really cool link that you sent about Osmo.ai, which actually is creating smell for digital things like laptop or phones, or it's very mesmerizing the stuff that they're doing. And the person who just won the Nobel Prize, Geoffrey Hinton, he actually is joined as a board of director now on that. So I was wondering if you can answer these two questions.
No problem. For your first question, I personally just use social media to keep in touch with what's going on in the AI space or just the programming space overall. What I mainly use is X, formerly Twitter. I follow a lot of people in the artificial intelligence space. I follow communities and I keep in touch. I like the posts and engage, which has in turn curated an algorithm which is best fit for me. And from time and time, I see newer developments and recent developments. And as soon as I do, I just feel like sharing it, especially if it resonates with me. So I share it with people and see if other people take a liking and interest to it. And the other reason why I share it is because, let's say, if one of the things I shared is closed source, I would hope it would inspire someone to make it open source. So that's kind of my approach to that.
That's very philanthropic of you, and actually that's how it should be. I'm firm believer in open source. With that, you want to continue on the second one?
Yes. So when one of the things was that company being able to make something that you can smell, but all through programming, that completely amazed me. And although I was amazed, I was not surprised. It has been something that I have actually wondered for years, many years. It had came to my mind a long time ago, and I would question myself, would we ever get to the point, or when would we get to the point where we are across the world and one person may be able to smell something that's across the world? And I think this, just like AI, will be the next big development, one of the next big developments in computing, programming, being able to replicate smell, being able to get it across. And it'll be big in many industries, whether that's gaming or even surgical fields, or for doctors, the even gardening. The possibilities are endless.
Yeah, it's education. I mean,
Mhm.
huge. People are right now focused on visual, and then the speech. I
Yeah,
mean, imagine bringing smell,
exactly.
and then you have the taste. And I think slowly and slowly we are building a more human duo, or like a robot duo
Yeah,
of all the combining all the senses.
yeah.
And then you have the human dexterity. I think a lot of companies are working on that for the robots. It's an amazing time that we're living in.
Mhm.
My last question is, what advice or what suggestion would you give to the people now that you have been in the computer industry and you know where it's heading towards in the terms of AI and other developments? What advice would you give to the people who are just joining in this industry, they should be doing when starting off?
My number one advice to people that are freshly coming into this industry is to not be overwhelmed. Do not get overwhelmed, because yes, there will be people that have probably already developed the idea that you have thought about. It might already exist. So don't let it demoralize you once you discover that whatever idea you had exists already. Just keep pursuing whatever other idea you might have, because you are bound to have something unique. You are bound to find a solution to a problem that someone hasn't discovered yet. So perseverance and not losing hope and consistency and not getting overwhelmed are the main things I would advise to others.
Lovely. This was a really great advice, and it was an awesome discussion, Zoeb. I learned so much from you, and my hope is that audience also learn a few things. And we definitely have to do another one of these, and maybe we can focus on prompt engineering and go a little bit more detailed in specific LLMs. I really appreciate you joining the call, and this was awesome, like I said. And thanks a lot.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for your time. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, this platform to speak to yourself and to all the audience out there.